Welcome to This Is Just a Message, and I am just a messenger, where truth, transformation, and transmission meet. I'm your host, Cairo 4.0, Peace Energy. Tuning in from the frequency of higher minds and inner clarity, this isn't just talk, it's vibration, it's frequency, it's harmony, it's guidance. It's the message you didn't know that you needed. So open your heart, quiet your mind, and let's journey into the knowing, one message at a time. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Wholeness. I have one of my greatest friends ever coming to be my guest. And this is the segment, of course, just a message about Earth. So we're going to talk about how to work with the Earth and how to create some things here on Earth that'll help us as living beings to give love, share love, be love, and to live better, right? So my friend, who I always say is like a chemist, she is like an alchemist, she is an apothecary, she is a savant and knower of all things, but she's also a life science expert. So we'll call her the life sciences subject matter expert. She is a shaman, she is a healer, she is a multitude of things, and I would love for all of you to know my buddy, my pal. She's also an educator. Don't let me sleep on that one. She's an educator of youth and adults and seniors and the world. So let me introduce to you my really good friend, one of my best friends in the whole entire world for years and years. Probably my longest friend, right? This is Miamuun 2rivers Bey, and she's here now, the Elephant Rock School, the original teacher, the mother spider, all of these things. Welcome her. I call her Mother Earth.
That's a beautiful intro. Thank you so much, Cairo. I appreciate it. Claim it all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All true. So
it is. I don't talk about myself probably enough, and that's probably what keeps me on a quest to do more and more. Is because I be forgetting all the things that I have done, that I am adept at, and have mastered. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
yeah, so tell us really quickly about how you have worked on farms and really how this whole gardening thing came about. Like you gardening and farming and nature, etc. Like I used to always say this, and for some of y'all that this might feel controversial, but back in the day when weed wasn't legal, right? So this is someone who I looked at and I thought in my mind, like back then, I was like, weed is terrible, marijuana, terrible. But in this particular conversation, it became medicinal, and it's now become something that nationally is lawful and legal in many and almost all states. And so I was learning from someone who I used to think was just a weed head. And I looked, and when she started breaking down the scientific components to what the actual marijuana tree was, I knew it was something else at that point. So it blew my mind from that point on, the things that she knew, because when I'm telling you the molecular components of the plant, I watched and how she like would put it in different foods and all sorts of things. I said something else is going on here. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna keep watching. So, and it's blossomed out into not just from a CBD standpoint, but it's moved to hemp farming. It's moved to cannabinoid, and it's moved like she has done so much. And so, can you delve a little bit into that? I think that by itself for me. Let's talk about you, of course, where you start from, and then go into that really quickly. If you can make that quickly, I'm sorry.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, ponytails.
Nut.
No, shout out to Biggie. But so I don't know. So I have been growing things and cultivating. I'll say I've been cultivating the soil for a really long time. I started with my dad out in the backyard, and my mom wanted certain things to grow, so we learned how to make them grow in Colorado. So, and that was kind of the start of like, oh, you could pretty much do anything, in terms of like growing. And I stayed with houseplants for a really long time until I got probably after I had my daughter. Then I wanted to really start exploring like what this green thumb could do in terms of growing food for my family and for other people. And I feel like it's just a love that I have for humans in general, to want to feed them. I cook, but I love to cook with fresh ingredients. There's a huge difference between cooking some greens that you got from the grocery store and having to, cook them for an hour, maybe 2 hours to get them tender, and then they still not quite the way you want, to like growing them yourself and getting the baby greens and eating those raw with a salad until you get the big ones. And when you get the big ones, you pick them and they take 30 minutes to get done, and your family can eat with some cornbread. Like, it's amazing the difference in what a tomato tastes like that you grew yourself as opposed to what you get in the grocery store is amazing. You're wondering like, what the hell am I eating? Is this even real tomato? Once you start thinking about what you're getting from the grocery store. So, just those types of things, those types of questions just kept me wondering about more and more things. So I got into community gardens. I got into grocery stores. How do we get our food in the grocery stores if we wanted to do that? We've talked about community gardens, you and I. So, like, if there's any way that people can feed each other, it's with community gardens. Huge proponent. Elephant Rock Field School is my company, and we talk about growing food on a daily basis. And we don't just talk about these things to children, we talk about to the whole family. What can you do in terms of self-sustainability to sustain your whole entire family? Is it solar panels? Do you want to use solar panels at your house? Can you use solar panels at your house? Let's buy some and see. Let's use the solar panels to shade the food that we're growing in the backyard, if we have a backyard, or if not, if we have a balcony. Let's do it. Let's do it all. Because the more self-sufficient you are, the less you have to depend on a system that doesn't really care about you, and you've already seen it. You're just hoping that you're not the next one, but also who cares enough about you to not want you to be free. And if you think about energy used to be free, food used to be free, baby, food is still free. Energy is still free. You just have to be smart about it. Be self-sustaining. Know who you want to serve in terms of like, are your neighbors people that you trust? Can you talk to them about the same things? Can y'all work together to achieve the same goals? Gardening is not a big thing. It's not. You can do it inside your house. If you want like a hydroponic tower, they have those. I think those things are on sale for like $50. And they yield so much food every single time. If you just want to do lettuce, if you decide you want 2 more, because you're going to get addicted. You're going to get addicted to growing food. And that is another tenet of my businesses, or not just my business, my foundation, my ministry. Like, who am I going to feed? Who am I going to nourish? Right? Because it's not always about food. Self-sustainability is, what types of things can you do for yourself? And how can you achieve that goal? Who's here to help me with that?
Beautiful. All right. So when we come back, we're going to discuss more about food and farming and community gardens with Miamuun 2rivers Bey, who I'm super happy to have here on Just a Thought. Just a thought, just a message, just a messenger. I'm just a messenger, so we'll be back. And thank you for being here, by the way.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, I was very sick and felt like it was like the end of the world. I was dying inside. And you came along and put this garden on my patio on the 14th floor. And you gave me spaghetti garden. I always think about this garden probably at least once a week, because I'm always thinking how I would love to recreate my favorite smell in the world of steak, right? Steak or spaghetti. So I'm smelling spaghetti blowing in my house every day because you put garlic and you put cilantro and you put parsley and you put tomato and onion, and it smelled every day like spaghetti. Every day. I used to love to smell this every morning. I like to keep my window open just so it could blow in from the wind, and I would love to just stand there and smell that, and it just was elation, literally. And thank you for that, because that was it was peace for me in a time. Don't do that. I get choked up when I think about this, but it was peace for me in a time when I needed it. And it was something real simple, plants and a smell that came from the plants. So I thank you for that. But it also pivots into the space where we left off at with community gardening and the significance of what it could be to people in urban communities. What does that mean to have access to fresh food when you don't have any food in your area? What could it be if people just had an event, right? You have an event. Everybody decide we're going to plant community gardens across the town. Make it a tour, right? And we put community gardens in boroughs and in neighborhoods and towns. And it become like a collective activity of people just planting, composting, putting fruits and vegetables in the ground. Like, what would something like that do for all of humanity to you? Like, in your mind, like, what is the significance of a community garden?
That's really cool, because that's actually what my ministry does. We go to different communities and we involve the community in this, so it's a buy-in for everybody. I first studied this at a school in South Central Los Angeles, and it was a place where they had an actual monitor, somebody who was there, who had hours and was paid, as well as a teacher, to monitor the garden, to make sure that the garden was kept up, make sure that it had what it needed. And that to me was key. Like, they put funding in there for somebody to take care of the food, because they understood that when the food is taken care of, their students come to school with a better disposition. They come to school ready to learn because they're not hungry. And please understand, like, going to be able to get I get choked up a little bit because, like, Pop-Tarts and hot Cheetos is not dinner. But that sometimes is the only thing they can afford, because again, like we said, they've already taken away access to free food. And I'm not talking about free food as in going to pick up a food box. I'm talking about fruit trees. They lock them up. You're not allowed to take fruit off of somebody else's tree. If you get caught, you can, like, go to jail. Like, that should be free food. That should be somebody's snack. Somebody should be able to take 3 of those and make a meal. But that's not how our country works, whatever. So so in terms of, like, free food, we're talking about being able to grow it where we need to grow it, and to take what we need. So I think that the school understood that, and there was funding in there for that. Community gardens are most often not funded. Sometimes they'll be attached to a school. Sometimes they'll be attached to, like, an organization. And so it's really important to understand, like, if there's not movement for that, like, you can even say, you know, here's my volunteer time, because then that even helps out, because you want the food to prosper, because you want to whomever is going to eat from that to prosper. So that's really, like, the buy-in behind community gardens. And so sometimes it can just be your time, and then you take home a basket. Now that basket might feed you for a week, or it might feed you for 2 days, but that's something you didn't have before, and it's fresh food. It just came out the ground. And so that's why, to me, you know, community gardens are important, because people have to understand what is a buy-in. When you talk about a highly capitalistic society, you got to call it that. Otherwise, it would just be teamwork.
Okay, so let's explain what a community garden is for anyone who doesn't understand. And the reason I'm saying that is I remember, I want to say Moses, when we went to a farm, it was a community farm, and we were able to go out there and get, like, for $10 a month's worth of kale. Mm-hmm. That was like, the bag that he gave us was like a basket. And I was sitting here thinking in my mind, like, what if we could do that for all the food, right?
Yeah.
And since then, I've encountered people who are trying to do that, but don't know how to do it. They're just growing stuff, because kale apparently grows like haywire. So, but in that kind of context, like, can you explain, like, what the community garden is, and how it works?
Sure. So community garden, again, we talked about buy-in from the community. If you want food, then you would volunteer your time, or you would volunteer your wallet, and that looks like buying. A lot of people have what's called a CSA. and that's community supported agriculture. And a CSA is a subscription to that grow or to that farm, and that says I'm going to buy this much every month. Even if I don't come and get it, here's my pledge. I'm still going to pay it. And it's a subscription. It's like Amazon. You want to keep getting the food, then but you get so much food. And so it's never like, the more you support, the more abundant you become. And that's what's really lovely about that. Um, and so that's like a kind of that's a ground roots type of link to different community gardens. If you're just thinking about, hey, you know what, I want my community to have a garden, then you want to go bare bones. And what that is that's just people putting their time and their energy and their money towards growing food for each other. And so a good example of that would be, right now I'm working with Baptist Towers in at the city of Atlanta, and it's a senior apartment building. And so you have them looking to grow food, and they have the space, they have the people, and they just need, right now, they need more tools. They need money for seeds. They need money for more beds. They need money for soil. They need money to create compost. And so a lot of these community gardens need new stuff every year, and that's just basically like consumable goods. And so again, that'll be like tools and gloves and seeds and seedlings that they want to put in the ground every year to create food for that apartment building. And then that apartment building, if they have more, and they have, like, Baptist Towers has a few buildings around the city, and so each of them has a garden. Sometimes they're sponsored by an organization, and sometimes they're not. And so it would behoove anybody who wants to do a community garden kind of get sponsored, or get somebody who wants to see you succeed every year. And then you can give them a list of things that you need, and just be very reciprocal. Send them food, send them a basket of food every month, or just have them come and get their CSA subscription. Like, you sponsor us, so you already have a CSA subscription, or you already have a basket set aside for you. So it really just depends on how people want it to stay funded. If it's truly community, I think buy-in is always really important. Do you want to eat from this garden? Then you have to put it in. And there are a lot of different models like that around your city as well. You'll see like community gardens where you just buy a plot, and you pay them maybe $40 or $60 every month to farm that plot. And you go in and you put in the sweat equity, and you put in the seeds and the soil and things like that. But that they have an attendant, and that's being paid by your dues every month, that's going to come. He's going to give you new soil. They're going to be watering it every day, especially in the summer where plants are really prone to get dried out, and sometimes people have to work and you have time to go back and water it. No, they have an attendant, and they take care of things like that. So
wait. So just to be clear, anyone can go and do this, right? This isn't like someone who has to have a subject matter or a degree, like subject matter expert like yourself on life sciences. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to have any level certification. Anybody can do a community garden.
Absolutely. Yep. And those are the ways that you can kind of get into it. You can do it from different directions. And if you see your community just needs help, then open it up to what's called a CSA, a community supporter. So then you open it up to a larger community and, send it out to people like, hey, we have this garden. Are you interested in, you know, are you interested in working with us? Are you interested in buying in? Because that's local food. And again, the more local, the better. If you have a community garden 5 miles from you, it's guaranteed, baby. It's guaranteed that you're going to have every single thing that your body and your children's body is going to need month to month in terms of like minerals, in terms of like minerals will be your in terms of
Brilliant.
yeah. So see what people are doing.
Wait, so okay. No, go ahead, say that.
I was just saying, see what people are doing around your area and buy into that, because those herbs are exactly what you need. What they have on that farm, that community garden, that's exactly what your family needs. It's pretty deep, in terms of what foods are needed.
I'm thinking of this as like a project, right? Because I keep saying through Halo Innovation Ministries, I want to do a food bank, right? At some point, I want to get a facility and hold food to distribute to people, because I had the realization recently that food is your first form of love, right? The first thing your mother does for you, she gives you breast milk, right? She might give you a kiss, but she gives you breast milk to eat. Mm-hmm. So you get to eat, and food being the first form of love, or as Brother Harris would say, nectar, right? The meta nectar, like the first form of nature is life, and life comes through eating. So like us being able to give that kind of love in the community is like, it's something that I think is a space where people can reconnect with each other, because everybody has to eat. I don't care who it is. People who have bulimia, they still got to eat. So I'm looking into this thought process of food banks. What would it be to make a community garden a food bank? Is that a thing? Could that happen?
Oh yeah, that's a really good idea. Because you have a lot of times food banks are tricky because you have to get a constant source of food. And if you're tapping into other grocery stores around that area and you're saying, hey, what do you have to donate to the food bank? And they're going to give you stuff. And I don't look down on anything that they give you. But a lot of times, if you're talking about really feeding the community, like, why not have it be so close to where they actually live? It's in their neighborhood. I visited one this summer, 2024, in Colorado Springs. And it's a place that I always knew, but it just was always just a very red dirt, barren field. And they have turned it into an actual, like, growing area, and it's called the Hub, and it at Hilltop, and it's beautiful because they are actually growing food and they're expanding, but that food that they grow, the community comes and they harvest it, and they work, I don't even know, maybe about 8 hours that day. They harvest it and they put it on display for people like me who needed food at that time. So, and it's a beautiful display because it's a huge harvest. You're talking about straight from the ground. All they did was wash it off, baby. Like, it came straight from the ground. So I think that is a perfect idea. It's beautiful. And if you get a really good spot, you can have them come and eat, or just grab food or grow food. That's a social enterprise instead of really like a 501c3. And I feel like maybe that's where people get it twisted, is that social enterprises really mean helping the social around you, the people around you.
You know, you mentioned something to me a long time ago. I was going to say something else just a second ago, but you just thought it made me think of something. You mentioned something to me a long time ago called the slow food movement, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to the fast food, right? So,
Yeah.
slow food movement might be like a good partner to get into something like this. Because I was even thinking, like, if somebody locally is able to set these up, right? If you, right, Miamuun, in your ministry are able to set these up for people nationwide, how much of a difference in health it would make for people, because now you don't have to worry about pesticides. You can meet the grower, right? You can go to the garden, put your hands in the soil and play with the soil yourself.
Yeah.
um, how do we change from things like inorganic to organic, or GMO, non GMO? And a lot of these are just titles, right? So, and I should say a lot of them. Organic is just a title that is put onto foods. And you know this because you are an actual farmer, have actually farmed with black farmers throughout different states, and you know what the difference is in organic versus inorganic. So,
I would love to speak on it.
okay, okay, go ahead.
Oh, do you have time, or are we still
Oh,
on
yeah,
that?
we'll make time. Go ahead.
um, so I feel in terms of large grows, like if you're talking about Driscoll's, strawberries, or anything like that, where you have huge growing, um, it's virtually impossible to say this is organic and this is inorganic growing if it's in the same field. Now, if it's across the if it's across the street, it's the same. If it is across the world, so say one of their grows is in Mexico and one of their grows is in northern United States, well then that would have to be, or you could assume that one is organic and one is, and it is not. But if you're talking about getting the same strawberries from the same field, but one is used organic practices, that's one thing. Let's get understood, like there's an organic practice and then there's organic soil. If you are using organic practices, yes, they will let you label it organic, even if your soil is not organic. Your soil has to be organic, meaning you haven't used any harsh chemicals to grow, and you've used organic techniques on that soil the whole time. But they can get distinctions from one year to the next, meaning one year they were using organic practices on that soil. The very next year, they were not, or vice versa. So, but they can still say that they're organic. So, in large grows, there's no such thing. Okay.
So it sounds like paid advertising.
Right. Now, if you go to a farm, say you went to a strawberry farm and they said, hey, you can pick your own strawberries. We grow them organically. We don't use any chemicals, and a lot of times those are the ones who are actually organic. They don't use chemicals, and you can tell that they have people coming through pulling the dead ones. They have people coming through cleaning up those so that you can come through and pick your own strawberries and not be grossed out, because organic practices are not exactly pretty. Sometimes you do have dead strawberries and you let them sit there so that the other ones can get what they need, but you don't let them sit too long because then they can rot the whole bunch. So it's very much timing. It's because you're not using chemicals. Those chemicals are time released, so they do their business with the farm without the farmer even having to do anything. So that's why local grows are so important, because you can go and see how they're growing the food. You can meet the farmer. You can even do that with your beef farmers. If you eat beef, if you eat chicken, go and get the chicken from the farmer. They need you, and you need them. You can see if it's organic or not. And the way that they do meat, if you're a meat eater, is that you like, especially halal. If I were you, I would visit halal butchers. Those are the ones who grow their meat without any pork products, right? Or anything that's unclean, like hooves. Sometimes they do feed them hooves. So halal farmers will make sure that they don't do any of that. They're small business owners. So the halal farmers will go to a processing plant who does not process pig. That's how you keep it halal. So you have to follow the chain. Where is he taking his meat to process? If he's not slaughtering them himself, where is he taking them to process? Then you go to the halal butcher, because you know that the whole process has been halal from the start. They don't use pork. Well, there's a good chance if they don't use pork, they're pretty much organic. You can check and see, but they're probably organic because they're small business farmers. So,
girl, what? What? Come back. So, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot. Listen, we're gonna have to hard break here. We're gonna come back. We'll get into some more. We will have to meet every week. We're gonna have to do this every week because there's so much. You have so much to share. So let's hard break, and we'll be back. Okay, we're back, and I said I was going to talk about this blueberry tree. So I remember back when you were composting, and somehow or another you had thrown some blueberries into the compost, and it sprouted a hybrid blueberry tree. Do you remember that?
mm-hmm.
In your backyard?
My little volunteer blueberry tree.
Were you ever able to eat those blueberries? Were they edible?
Yeah. So what I didn't know at that time is that blueberries love partners. They need interaction with another blueberry tree in order to be successful. And so maybe about 3 years after that volunteer blueberry bush, sprouted up, I realized, or I learned actually that that's what it needed, and I got a blueberry tree from one of the farmers here in Atlanta. And it started sprouting flowers and sprouting fruit. So they both were sprouting fruit, probably for about 2 or 3 years after that, and then they both just came to the end of their life cycle together, which is crazy.
Do you know how to get honeysuckle to grow?
Oh yeah, honeysuckle is really easy to grow. It's just a shrub.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Does it grow fast?
That first house that we lived in, here, that had honeysuckle all on the front of it. What are you trying to grow it for in particular?
Just to eat the honeysuckle. I just have an infatuation with the smell of honeysuckle, and I love honeysuckle, and I want to eat the I like the flower. I think you're the person that told me I could eat it. I was like, oh my God, I can eat it. Go eat it. It tastes good, but I want to smell it more than anything. I like the smell of that and gardenia, and I really want to grow roses. I don't know how hard roses sound like. They might be challenging, but I want to grow roses because I want to make rose oil.
The trick to roses is very the fish heads, or you can bury a whole damn fish underneath it, and they will
Fish.
take off. Yeah. You can also, if you don't want to do that, you can also just go and get some blood meal from these stores.
None of that sounds good.
Blood meal is kind of expensive. It's really stinky, but it's really worth it because it makes plants like your roses, azaleas just take off. And really, mostly all plants and flowers love blood meal. But you have a good relationship with it.
I actually saw a brother talking about how he puts fish, and he did show this whenever he's growing anything, puts a whole fish down into. Now that you say that, I just remember that a few months ago I saw that on YouTube, and he put a whole entire fish. I don't know what that brother show was called, but very interesting brother. He dropped the whole fish inside of the soil. And he did say that, and I thought in my mind, that's gross. Why would you do that? But now that you're saying it.
Yeah, it
Okay,
just works out so beautifully. Like, if you made your family some fish, you know what I'm saying? Get the fish with the head. Get the fish with the bones and ask them to debone it for you. First of all, the meat is better. You're going to enjoy it better, you know, if you get these places to do it for you, like, and you get fresh fish. But then also have him give it back to you, you know, and if he has any others, you know, bag it for you. If you got any other fish heads and bones, he probably taking it home for his family so he can grow some stuff, you know, but ask him for it, you know, so that you can take it home, freeze it until you get ready to put something in the ground. But if you try to do like edible flowers, Cairo, I would probably do roses, peonies. You know, there's some flowers that are just perennials and they're super easy to grow. You know, just put them in the ground. If you want a renewal every year of some tasty young flowers, I would do rose bushes.
Okay.
And do like 2 or 3, you know, let the ladies have friends, and then you also have a variety.
So, okay, I'm gonna have to bring you back and do a whole separate section about edible flowers and edible other things that people don't know that they can eat. Because I actually saw a video of a lady. It's a very common plant. I don't know what it's called, but it's literally in everybody's garden. Like, it's in everybody's yard, and it's the most visible plant. It looks like bok choy, but it has like a kind of purple color in it. But apparently it's the most edible thing in the ground. And there are a lot of things people don't know that they can eat, like roses, and that, you know, these are edibles. They're not just pretty, and they're not just something for entertainment purposes. It's something you can eat. So we got to get and do like a whole show, do a whole entire episode on things you can eat that you don't know you can eat.
Yeah, I mean, not only edible, but also medicinal. You know, roses are highly medicinal, especially for women.
Love them.
Yeah, so like that's, and I always say like food is our first medicine anyway. So like anything that you can eat out the ground, straight at the ground, you know it's going to be medicine too. So, you know, find out what the attributes are and how they can help you personally, and then put them in the ground. Because there's a theory of, you know, most herbalists, most people who grow food, most foragers, everything that your body needs and your family's body needs, including your dog, medicine-wise, food-wise, is already within 10 miles of your you are, of where you live. And that's because,
or it should be.
Right. Yeah, if it hasn't been moved out, but you can keep looking for it and keep foraging because that's the medicine that was made for you. And you think about, where you urine, where, where you go pee, where everything flows out to, where that water flows out to, or the things that you do outside, that you spit outside. So really your DNA is already coded for what's growing outside.
Wow.
So all the medicine you have within 10 miles, just take a walk. Take a walk where you are. You don't have to hardcore forage, but I bet you see some mushrooms that your body really needs. You'll see some herbs that your body really needs. If you see blackberries, take them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you see fruit trees, this is what is meant for your body, and so, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of foraging food because all that stuff is already in the ground. You can do your part by putting some things in the ground and feeding the bees and making sure the bees have what they need and the bugs and stuff around you, so that when they carry it away from your house, they're finding it or they're sharing it with somebody else. And that, even if you throw a peach pit out the out the window, think about who's finding that. Beetles.
Listen, I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial. I'm going to say it anyway. But this is the reason why the education system is being torn apart, because this is not what's being taught.
No.
This is true life science, and the reason why we know this is not because you learned this in school. You learned this outside in the yard. You learned this outside in the soil and on the farms. And going to what you said, we're talking about food that should be near you. Like, they didn't teach us this. Why do we have food deserts if there should be food within 5 miles of us on foot?
Mm-hmm. They needed us to do that. If you think about all the great lengths they went to outlaw certain fruit trees, they won't sell them in stores. You can graft them. Mm-hmm. Which basically means, taking a graft to somebody else's tree and grafting it onto your tree, so that your tree, like say you have a Meyer lemon tree and you wanted another citrus, say like a sweet orange, which is the original orange, the orange that we should be consuming, and not this GMO that sometimes comes with no seeds. But if you want to graft it, right, and if you want to graft it onto that, you could. And something like citrus, like a pear, you could graft it onto an apple tree. Or, if you needed a nectarine for the B17 process and you want to get rid of cancer, with a B17 stream, you might want to graft a nectarine branch onto a peach tree so that you can have both, and you can get it out of both seeds.
So I got a few more minutes on this segment, but let's talk about the food desert. So the food desert is a zone or an area where people in usually urban areas don't have accessible foods, right? So they don't have grocery stores, and they don't have where they can get natural food, and they don't have gardens or farmers markets. They don't have access to real food. Right. And so you're seeing a lot more of this happening. And so the reason that I really wanted to bring you here today was to talk about community gardens and how we can get into community gardens. So we only have like a few minutes left on here, but when we come back on the next section, let's go back in and talk directly about community gardens. This has actually gone by really quickly, so I now think that this should be a regular conversation we have. because it's so much information that you have. I hadn't even gotten into your farming background. So we'll do a whole segment on just you and your background towards the end. But wow. Okay, so let's come back in a couple minutes and let's talk about the community gardens and the impact of a community garden to, man, I wish I could have Dr. Michelle Love on here, but the impact of a community garden. I'm going to do a segment with the two of you on, but the impact of a community garden and what that could mean to urban families and to people in inner cities and even in suburban areas. Like, what could the uprising of community gardens and people just toiling soil everywhere do to change the dynamic of our food resources? And then we'll talk about organics as well. So we'll take a break really quickly and come right back. Give us 2 and 2. That's the title of this one. Okay, and everybody wants to eat. So if you had like to talk to anybody about how to grow food, like where would you tell them to start at?
Start composting. First thing you do before you buy plants, before you buy seedlings, start a worm farm or start composting your food scraps. And the first thing you'll notice is how much less garbage you generate going out of your house. And then also, now you're learning how to, like, if you do a worm farm, and they're two different things, composting and worm farming, they're two different things, but they yield the same thing. You're creating soil. And that's one thing we can do as humans. And we'll talk a little bit more about organics, like, in a little bit, but creating a soil source first is what I would say. Start there. And then you can decide like how you want to plant your food. Do you want to plant them in pots? Do you want to do hydroponics? Do you want to do, planting straight in the ground? But I would do that first.
Okay, so when you say composting, when I'm composting, am I putting any type of trash, or is it like just fruits and vegetables? What are you looking at when you're, and just to explain composting for someone who doesn't understand what that is. Everyone's not earthy, right?
No, that's a good question though. So in order to compost, what you're doing is using your food scraps. And the most effective composting has 3 levels. So you're going to use food scraps, a brown level, and then it will be considered a black level. But black level is really just soil. And it doesn't even have to be good soil. It could be soil that you were going to throw out, because you feel like it doesn't have any nutritional value anymore. So composting is really using everything that you already have and you feel like it's been used. And so your first level is going to be your organic soil. Your organic level. So that's your food scraps. You can, throw away stuff out of your refrigerator. What I don't recommend is meat. Don't put meat in your compost. So don't throw that in your compost. But and especially if you're doing a worm farm exclusively, which is a closed space, and you're putting together like a closed space that gives the worms an opportunity to make as much soil as they can within that closed space. And then a compost is something that allows the elements to help break down the food. And so getting back to those 3 levels, you have that level of
organic matter, which is your food scraps. Then you have, minus your meat. Then you have your brown level, which could be like brown paper bags without any dyes or paints on them. It could be leaves from the ground, that's fallen off of trees. Just anything that looks all shriveled up. It could be dead grass. Dead grass is great, so if you just mowed your lawn, let it dry a little bit, and then put it on top of there. And then, so those are your 3 levels. And so, and then soil that you are not using. You don't even have to put a lot on top of that. And then it helps break everything down. All of those 3 levels call different decomposers to the site to break things down. So you have worms, you have millipedes, centipedes, other decomposers are like roly-polies, anything that you usually like find under rocks and things like that. Those are going to be like decomposers. Flies, decomposers. Sometimes wasps are pollinators, but sometimes they're decomposers as well. Beetles. So all those guys are going to be involved in breaking down your compost. And so sometimes you want to leave it open at the top so everybody can have access to them. And for my personal one, I used this is crazy, and I've had it for like 3 years and it's great, but it's an old dryer drum. So I pulled the dryer drum out of the dryer itself, and it's just the metal part, and it has, there's holes in the back of your dryer drum if you look at it. And so you put that part on the ground, the worms can come up through there, beetles, anything can come up through the bottom because there's holes on the bottom. And then I leave it open and I just do my stacking. So whenever I put my fresh food scraps out there, then I also put like a paper bag, or I'll put them in a paper bag. And depending on how long they're going to stay in the house, put it in a paper bag, and then just take that paper bag out, spread it out on top of the layers, and then put a layer of dirt, and that's it. So you're composting. And then for me, I do it twice a year, and I just stir that stuff around. You look at the bottom and you have some gold, some black gold, seriously, because you're growing your own soil like that. So, and it takes a little bit longer because you're depending on the sun and decomposers to do the job. You can get those ones that are constantly turned and they're in a black tub, and you can get them off of Amazon, and you just turn them every day, and then by the end of the week you have fresh soil after you put your food scraps out there. And that one also requires layering, but you don't have to put quite as much, just make sure you put everything in there. And I think that one, you don't really need a brown layer. You can put your leaves and things like that, but you don't necessarily have to put like paper bags and stuff out there. So there's lots of different ways to compost. And with the worms, you're going to put all your food scraps out there except for onions, bread, and meat. And give them a layer that they can push through, give them a little challenge, and you'll have a brand new soil as well. And you can see different models of that, like on Pinterest and YouTube. But worm farms are really effective because you get those castings or their poop a lot faster, and you can use them to fertilize your plants, and they're really great, super. Another way of composting is putting like fish heads or whole fish underneath the ground before you start planting. You prepare your soil like that. And so there's a couple different ways. And we can talk about hugelkultur later too, because that's a really fun way of composting.
Hugelkultur.
Mm-hmm. And it's just basically, that's the popular name for it, but Africans have been doing it for a really long time. People native to these lands have been doing them a really long time, because you'll see mounds everywhere. Like North America has a huge amount of mounds. In Mexico, here, even up north, like in Illinois, they have crazy mounds. Now,
They
even
do,
though,
yeah.
right? So a lot of those were used for gardening. You don't ever have to till the soil. And if they're getting big, that just means that they are, they get huge, abundant crops. And most of the time, there will be food just going down the hill. And that's the best way to like catch the rain. And the way they planted it is that you keep planting on top of it. You keep planting on top of it. And usually hugelkultur beds will start at your thigh. That's how tall you want to get them. You don't even have to really get them that tall if you dig first. But what those are is you have an area where you put, and you can dig again, you've put sticks underneath the ground, you've put any kind of scraps, and that will be your brown layer. So, you put huge branches that you cut off of trees or that you found in the forest or whatever, and put those down as your first layer. Then you're going to start filling everything in with soil. Doesn't even have to be good soil, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be the conditioned soil. And then you just keep filling it, and that is where you would do like the lasagna filling, like I told you, the three layers. And just do really large layers of each thing. And then on the top, you have good soil that's already conditioned, and then you start planting your seedlings or your seeds. Once everything starts growing, you can harvest from that. You never have to till that. You never have to do anything else to it, but keep putting food in there. You can put another layer of good soil on top every time if you would like, but it's not really required. And with that, you do have to be vigilant of like weeds and stuff that will choke the plants out. But it's so much easier to go and pull weeds off of something that's almost at waist level at this point. You just keep building and lasagna layering, all of that stuff. And each year you don't have to right. So you don't have to, till or anything like that. You're just building on top of that. And can you imagine how those mounds got that big? It's because the whole village was
Love spaghetti.
Yeah, right. They were layering and getting all the food they needed, and at the end of the season they celebrated because they could harvest everything they needed for everybody in the village. Nobody went hungry and nobody had to pay for their food.
Okay, stop right there. Let's break for a second. We're gonna come back, and I want to remind people, or remind you, better yet, remind people about these food deserts, because you just tapped onto something. But I just had a flash about this hybrid blueberry tree you made, so I definitely want to get on that. Let's take a break really quick, and we'll come right back, and we'll pause for the cause. See you in a second. I'll start. All right, and if someone wants to get in touch with you, Miamuun 2rivers Bey, how would they get in touch with you? How do they reach out to you?
Okay, so I am at Miamuun 2rivers Bey at protonmail.com, or you can go to my school's website, which is Elephant Rock Club. That's elephantроckclub.square.site. elephantроckclub.square.site. And I also have Instagram. And so my Instagram is going to be elephant_rock_field school.
Okay, and so for people, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I do have science classes happening right now for the youth, middle school and up, and for the whole family, like we mentioned before.
Absolutely. For people who might be spelling challenged, can you spell out Miamuun 2rivers Bey for them?
Sure. M as in Mary, A, I, M as in Mary, U, N as in Nancy. 2, the number 2, RIVERS.
All
2.
right, so we got Miamuun 2, the number 2, Rivers Bey. Okay, so for those of you, and Bay is not B-A-Y, it's B-E-Y. So for those of you who are wanting to collaborate, invest, sponsor, learn, if you want to get your children involved, this is who you want to talk to, and that's how you reach her. I want to thank you so much for coming on Just a Message. I'm Cairo 4.0. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. We'll probably have to do this every week, because when I tell you it's a plethora, that wasn't even half the information. It wasn't even a quarter, because we didn't get into it. We'll talk about it next time. So make sure you tune in, and we'll be back then. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.